how do you balance kind of that news that came out this week? How do you balance trying to maybe think about next year and your future while also still knowing I got to go out and try to win a race this weekend? I got to make the playoffs. I got to try to win a championship. How do you balance that mentally?
Yeah, it's definitely to find that balance of, 100% on track effort and just being a human being. You're going to think, what's kind of worst case scenario? What's next year look like? Am I going to have an opportunity? I'm definitely certainly looking for an opportunity for next year. But the only thing I can control and do is just focus on our race team and building the culture up at Stewart Haas and becoming the best piece of the puzzle for our group.
This is a question for Brian. Samuel Stubbs, yardbarker.com. Joey Logano won here a couple years ago. Ford very fast this weekend in practice and qualifying. And they were very fast here last year too. How much did you lean on your teammate Joey Logano? How much did you lean on other Fords as well to maybe glean some information and then use that to your advantage? Your win comes with the misfortune of your teammate, but a big win for you guys. How did you learn from your teammates and Ford in particular for this track?
Yeah, I think that's when a notebook works at its best, when you can take something that worked well. Austin was very happy with his car last year. We knew what we needed to work on. He had a solid day, but as you mentioned, we've got notes from the 12 car who ran well last year and from the 22 a couple years ago. I think the way that it works the best is when you can take pieces of that and you can try to look at what was different and what maybe made them better than what you were and incorporate those into your setup. So without a doubt, we took a lot of that information. To be honest with you, a lot of the information from where the 22 they tested at Wilkesboro. There are some short track aspects to the setup here. So some of the work that the 22 had done recently was incorporated as well. Within the Ford Wheel Force program, we gain a lot of information there as well. So that's when a notebook really works well, is when you can combine that all and give your driver what he needs.
One other thing I'd like to, if I can just comment on that. Those of you who are familiar with the shop where these men work in Mooresville, North Carolina, we have one big floor, and the crew chiefs all have their offices next to each other. One guy's not here, the other one's not over there. They're all together. And at 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, win, lose, or draw, there will be a 2-hour debrief call where this race will be dissected. And Brian and his colleagues are there, and the drivers are there, and we have engineers in there. So you asked about learning. Those have all been learning experiences. So we've gleaned a lot of information from what happened here today. So good question.
Austin, Samuel Stubbs, Yardbarker. First off, congratulations.
Thank you.
But take us through, you're running second with a lap and a half to go, and then Ryan slows and ultimately runs out the gas. Take us through maybe like the 3 minutes from lap and a half to go to when you're pulling, you're doing your burnout and everything. Did you go from thinking, hey, good points day to, are you sure we won the race? Did we really just win? Because not only did you win, now you're locked into the playoffs. This opens up a whole second season for you, really, with how the playoffs work. Just talk us through your emotions there in the last, 5 minutes and how everything happened so quickly.
Yeah, no, I'll take you back to like 10 to go. There was a bit of blood in the water because the lap cars were racing the snot out of Ryan. And he was probably 3 or 4 tenths slower, and Ryan had probably like a 2-second lead on me. And unfortunately, the 34 just come out of pit road, so I had traffic too for quite a while. But the two of us both ran him down, and I eventually got on the 34 and thought there might be a chance, like if he got slowed up or didn't get by the 99, that I would maybe have a chance. So I mean, I was the whole stint. Obviously, I'm giving everything I have to stay in touch. But especially as we got closer to the end there, it's like, okay, I don't need these tires for the end of the race. I don't need them for a restart. Like we're just going to go after and try and go get it. And then I saw him slow into 3. And my spotter picked up on it in the middle of 3 and 4, and I thought, okay, maybe there's that 4 to 5 upshift into 3. Like maybe he didn't get the upshift right or something. Like that's the only thing I could figure that would have made him that slow. But obviously they had their issues. I don't need to really relive that, because like you're passing them on the front straightaway, taking their white, like knowing exactly what that means, for them. And at that point, yeah, just focus on hitting your marks and win the race. And just being able to do a burnout and get out and do victory lane celebrations and all of it is like, it was like my first time all over again. It's been so long. So even just like standing up on the roof of my car, I about fell over in victory lane, just big tree fall hard on that deal. So I can't make the highlight reel on that. So, just an incredible range of emotions in a short amount of time.
Question in the back from Shane.
Joey, Samuel Stubbs, yardbarker.com. You mentioned you win that race at Nashville, you're locked into the playoffs, and it kind of seems like both years that you've won the championship in 2018 and 2022, you kind of flew under the radar, turned up the wick in the playoffs, and there you are holding that cup. So with that win, you probably haven't had exactly the season you've wanted, but you have that win, you're in the postseason field. Do you feel like you and Paul on this team that has that big game experience, that championship pedigree, do you think you can go out and be a legitimate contender once the postseason rolls around?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we always think we could win the championship. There's a lot of stepping stones and things you got to do to get there, but you bring it up plenty of times that, as far as like you think of 2018, and I've said it before, I remember having the conversation with my wife just saying, gosh, I hope we get through the first round of this playoffs, because that's how I felt we were from a speed perspective. And then all of a sudden it got better and we go on and win the whole thing. And she reminds me all the time, you just remember what you said in 18. I'm like, okay, honey, I got you. So it's, but she's right. You just got to stay around, right? The whole, you got to be in it to win it is so real with our playoffs. Are we seeded the best? Going into the playoffs right now, no. Right, we don't have enough playoff points. The cards are stacked a little bit against us from that perspective. But I've also seen plenty of times where if you can just be solid, get through the rounds, win the races that matter, if you're around long enough for the speed knob to get turned up, it happened to the 12 last year, right? He got through the rounds just as he needed to, and by the time it was game time, boom, the speed showed up and he won the championship. We did that in 18, we did it in 22. Hopefully we do it again this year.
Ryan, you mentioned earlier the excitement surrounding this race and just how cool it is to walk around the city and see how many people are excited for it. Is this a race, is this an event that you think could be something NASCAR chooses to do, not just next year and say, yeah, we're going to go back for one more year? Is this something you think could have a long-term effect where 4 or 5, 10 years down the line, we're still coming to Chicago for a street race?
Yeah, I mean, I think it did such a good job last year and this year as far as like the notoriety of it and the fan excitement of it, to where I think you definitely can do it. I don't want it to get like Bristol's different, when they threw dirt on it. There's a track already there, and you throw dirt on it, and yeah, it was super hyped up. Like the first year and the second year, it was even more. And then the third year, people started to, and I say people like fans watching and stuff like that. They're like, well, okay, this kind of has run its course. I thought the dirt race was pretty good, honestly, but this is a whole different thing. You're bringing a racetrack to a city, a big city. And whether it be Chicago or somewhere else, I don't really have a preference, honestly. It's just whatever city will have us, and that's above my pay grade. I just go where they tell me to go. But I definitely think it could be neat as far as, you go to these huge markets of major cities around the country, even outside of our country, that can draw a huge attention to people that have maybe not seen a race before, and now we're bringing it right to your home, and I apologize that we messed the traffic up for a few days here, but I think overall it does a really good thing. Bringing money to the city with everyone coming in, bringing notoriety to your city. Like, I think that's good. So whether it's here or somewhere else, I don't really care. But I've enjoyed Chicago. I really like this city. I'm not a big city guy, but like Chicago is great. And so yeah, hopefully it's something that can continue across multiple cities. Not multiple times a year. I think once a year is a good thing to do it, but yeah, it can be done. Hopefully, it continues on. I've enjoyed it.
In the back.
Tyler, Samuel Stubbs, yardbarker.com. Back here. Back here. Sorry, all the way in the back.
The light is tough on my eyes. There you are.
Sorry about that. You're now third in the regular season standings, and you mentioned playoff points are so important with these wins, but that's 9 potential playoff points. Just looking at NASCAR.com here, you're only 23 points now out of the lead. So can you take some solace at least that, even though you've been close, there's still a chance for you to earn a lot of playoff points here with the regular season standings?
I mean, in some ways, yes, but, looking at Iowa, we should have ran first or second. We ran third. Here, we had a great opportunity to contend for the lead and the win in the final lap. So, I mean, yes, it's great to get good, have good points days, but when you get down to the end of this thing, at the end of the year, you got to win at Phoenix. You got to be, you got to contend. You got to close out the end of these races. In the last 2 weeks, haven't done a good job of that. So I've just got to think about it, figure it out, and be ready to go at Pocono. The very same situation could come up, and we just got to capitalize on it.
Yardbarker.com. This question's kind of for both of you. Oh, right back here. But Alex won 4 races in 2021, and then he had injuries in both 2022 and 2023. And I remember Denny Hamlin, whenever he had his injury about a decade ago, he said that it took about a year before he felt like he was fully comfortable back in the car. Do you think Alex is at that point physically where he's, finally 100% and he's showing that he's that same driver that went out and was a weekly contender for the win, a few years ago?
I mean, I can only speak to the some of the comments or the conversations I've had with Alex over the years when he's had the injuries. But I think because I had some cracked ribs one time, so I'm just trying to compare some things. But I think race car drivers they come up and they have accidents and sometimes you have injuries and you find out how tough you are, mentally and physically, and how bad you want to do it, and so Alex has been through a few significant injuries, and he's come back. I feel like stronger each time. Like I think it's helped him, motivate himself, find out how much he loves what he does, and is privileged to do that, and that means that he's got to work really hard to recover. And yet I think through that, of course, I think you're going to have some setbacks. Just being away from your team, even for a week or 2 weeks, not being out there on the track, I think affects drivers these days. I mean, we saw something similar with Chase Elliott, when he was out of the car. And it's not always necessarily the physical piece of it. It's just, this is tough. It's just hard to win, very hard to win, and the cars are difficult to drive, and it's hard to get the whole team all together at the perfect time, and for it all to come together and the right strategy and everything. It's very difficult. So you add in then an injury or some of the significant injuries that Alex has had to deal with. It's gonna set you back, and it's gonna take some time to get back to 100%, not just physically but with your team.